Good morning. Welcome to another episode of Tech Tuesday presented by Delta Media Group, where I would like to take this moment to utter one of the most profound lines in cinema history. There's a snake in my boot. So today we're going to go into the DeltaNet and take a look at the really how you manage your listings and where we can display your listings to you, where you can go in and make modifications to the way they show up on your website, and even get to some of the marketing tools from there. We've gone over listings before, but I feel like we've probably added some things, so it's time for an updated listings video. So let's do it. Let's go into the DeltaNet and do our thing. All right, so right now I'm on the welcome page. I'm going to go down here to listings and active listings. And this is going to show me every listing that, based on my Mls Id, or the one that's entered for me, the system believes belong to me. So now what you'll see here now these are all pocket listings because this is a test account. And I have one in here of each different status, so you can kind of see how they show up here. The only reason an inactive listing shows here is because it is a pocket listing. So the idea is if you have access to create pocket listings and you've made one, you can still get to them from here to go in and edit them even when they're inactive, as long as you haven't taken them off market, in which case the system would delete them. And there are different settings for pocket listings about that, but pocket listings are for another video. So for now, as long as your Mls Id is entered correctly on this page, you should see all your listings. And like any of the other kind of data table setups where we have a table like this, if you hit the plus sign, it'll show you any columns that aren't being displayed here based on the width of your browser. So we can see in this case we've got a column for photos and a column for requests on this particular listing, and then a column for the stats. I'm not going to click on toggle stats at this point, because stats has a tendency to be slow depending on how old your listing is, because that's how much traffic stat data we have for that listing. This listing is 993 days old. I created it as a test listing a while ago. So if I click on that toggle stats, it's going to take a long time. And we don't have that kind of time, right? So that's how you can see all the basic information related to that listing. Now the next thing you can do here is, if we click on tools, we get a modal that pops up here that gives us kind of quick access to a few different features related to that listing. So the first thing we have is send an e-card or create a print flyer. These really amount to the same thing with a little bit of a different filter. So if I click on send e-card, it takes me over to the e-cards and flyer system, and you can see that this filter setting is set to e-cards, so it's only displaying e-cards for me. Now because I've selected that listing, if I go down here and pick a e-card that relates to just one listing, we've got a lot in here for multiple. Anniversary, Earth Day. Earth Day is very important, Here we are, price reduced. Let's do that one. So if I click there, you can see the listing that I used to get to the e-card and flyer system is already selected here. So it populates with information for that listing. So it's just designed to be a shortcut to get you over here so that you can create e-cards or flyers more easily. So we'll go back to listings and active listings. We'll open that tools panel up again. Next thing I can do is create a print flyer that works exactly the same way and takes me to exactly the same system, only that filter is set to flyers instead of e-cards. Next we have informational print flyers. So these are print flyers that, they're exactly what they sound like. They're built to be informational and not so much graphical, but it's in a way that you can go in here and quickly kind of print off all of the listing fields that we have, all the data fields we have for that listing. So if I select one of the templates here, you can see it loads up down here, and this is what it would look like. So it's a way that you can load up a lot more just of an informational flyer. It's not designed to be pretty like the other ones. I'm running out of words for it, We've got graphical versus informational. That's the best way I can think to describe it. But here they are. So next thing, we'll go back to active listings again, and tools. So the next thing we can do is you create the seller reports here, and we've done videos specific to the seller reports, but what this will do is set up an automated listing traffic report. So if I click on this takes me to the seller reports page, and you can see the seller reports that I already have set up for this listing. If I didn't have any set up, I would just have the option to go through the wizard to create a new one. So I would say, for example, create a new report to the seller. I'd put in the seller's name. I'm feeling very creative this morning, as you can tell. Next. If it finds a customer, you can see there are a couple of customers that the system thinks are kind of close. I can select from those. Otherwise, I would say no sellers matched, and it'll let me create one. So we'll go ahead and pick one. Why not? And then I can fine-tune the information about that seller report. So which day I want it to send, how often I want it to send, when I want it to start going out, and whether or not I want to include myself on the email that goes out. So right now it'll actually send 2 emails, one to me and one to the seller. I could have it just go to me or just go to the seller if I wanted. And then I can override some of the defaults for the comps that'll show up on that seller report also. So right here, under each field, it kind of describes to you the default of what it's going to choose there. But if you wanted to go through and modify those, you could. And then lastly, it'll show sold properties if you have that turned on your seller reports. This lets you pick how old of sold listings you want to go on there. So with no restriction, any listing that the system considers comparable that is ever sold that we have data for, it'll display. So it could display something that's even a couple of years old, and you might want to narrow that down to say only in the last 30 or 60 days to get things that are more representative of the market there. But once you have that all set up, you just click Finish. That creates your report, and then it'll start sending out automatically for you. So back to Listings and Active Listings. And back to Tools. So the next thing we have here is we can see open houses. In most cases, these open houses will pull in automatically from the MLS. But if not, you can click here and you can actually add them in manually. In some cases, if the system is turned on for you, you can generate a Craigslist ad from here. What that does is we can't automatically post to Craigslist, but what the system will do is basically build you a template that you can copy and paste into Craigslist. And then it'll keep track of the time and date that you went in and set it up so that you can know how old your Craigslist ad is from here and then be able to easily go in and create another one. So if I click on it, you can see it takes me through to the posting tool. I can select from some different templates, though this recommended template is the only one I know of that works. Craigslist has started flagging the other templates. And you can pick your area Craigslist. When you post to Craigslist, that's the Craigslist page it'll open. And it just lays out all the listing information for you here so that it's really easy to get to and really easy to copy and paste into your post. So back over to Active Listings and Tools. Now the next thing we have here are seller disclosure section. If the system is turned on, it allows you to upload files that can be downloaded from the listing detail page for this listing. So you would just click here and it takes you to a file uploader. And then lastly down here, if the system is turned on, there's open house ads. I believe that is a custom system that's really not on for very many. So I wouldn't worry too much about that one for now. So we'll close out of that. All right, so the next thing you can do here is if you click on the MLS ID of the listing, and we'll go to the second one, the active one here, it'll take you to kind of a detail page for that listing. From here, you can see some information at the top. The most useful thing here is a link to the listing detail page. So it allows you to quickly get to the detail page on your website so you can see what this actually looks like publicly. You can add a custom ID to this listing, and those are used in a couple of different places. At this point, we have some companies that are really heavy into the use of these custom IDs, like setting specific names for their own listings. So that's kind of what this is for. But basically, it shows up on some internal pieces of the DeltaNet and on the admin side. Next, you have your main picture, some information about the listing. You have the mapping system. So if, especially on like a new construction listing, if it's in the wrong place on the map search, you can use this to reposition it. So I would click here, and now I can drag this pin to wherever I want it and hit save, and that'll save the new location for the listing. Because this is a pocket listing, I have this listing information section where I can go in and modify it, but on listings from the MLS, you won't have that since you can't modify that information from here. You have a tagline section where you can put in kind of a tagline or a phrase or a name for that listing that'll show up on most of the search results page templates. So if I go to a search results page, that tagline will generally show up on the card for the listing in this area. But it depends on which listing detail page or which search results template your website is using. But in most cases, I believe it'll show up there. Next, we have a primary virtual tour. Again, this will pull in from the MLS if there's one presented to us or if it's available to us. If you want to change it or add one through here, you can go and just paste the URL of your virtual tour here and hit Update Virtual Tour. And then what that will do is add a button right around here that says View Virtual Tour on the detail page. And if someone clicks it, that'll open up that virtual tour so they can see it. Now you can have a secondary, which works in much the same way, but it allows you to add 2 virtual tours to those pages. You have a YouTube video, which you can enter in here manually. The biggest thing about this section is that you only fill in one of these fields. So let's say you had a video created professionally for this listing. You could go to YouTube, load up the detail page for that video, and then you would grab either the video ID or the video link. So I'll go ahead and open up our Tech Tuesday playlist. So here we're on a playlist, but let's say I was looking at just this particular video. So if I wanted, I could go to this page and I could either grab this URL up here and paste that in, or I can go to share and I can grab this share URL. It's generally the easiest way. So I would copy that, and then I'll go into the DeltaNet here, and this says video share URL, so I'll paste it there. And then when I hit update video, you'll see that it fills in the rest of the sections for me automatically. So you only need to fill in one of those sections. And really, if you have just the video ID, and the reason we set it up this way is if you have a vendor that is uploading all these for you, and they send you different information, like maybe they just send you a video ID, that's all you would need to enter it here. So it's just designed to make it a little bit more convenient for you. Next, you have Welcome Mat videos. They work in exactly the same way, but if you're using the service Welcome Mat and you're creating videos that way, this is where you would add those. Matterport is the same deal. When Matterport uploads their videos onto their system, they will give you an ID or a URL or an embed code. They may actually give you all 3. But just like YouTube, you would just paste in one and save it, and it'll populate the rest. MapRight works in the same way. In any of these cases, or in all of these cases rather, when you have those embedded, they will show up on the listing detail page. So if I refresh my page here, we'll see if it loaded up my video that I added. Actually, I don't think I'm on the right listing. Let's try that. Let's try this. Let's do this. There we go. So now this is the detail page for the listing that we're actually going in and modifying. And you can see there's a view video button right here. And if I click on it, it takes me down the page, and then here's the video section. So they'll all show up in much the same way. Now as we continue on down the line, MapRight. Now if the builders and community system is turned on for you, you can attach this listing to a builder and a community. This is where you would do that. That's something that has to be turned on at the company level, and it basically creates landing pages for your different builders and communities. Listing custom fields. This is if any custom fields have been added for you. So this is specific because we're on a test site. But if you did have custom fields you wanted to be added to listings kind of at the company level, we can add those in, and this is where you would modify them. Open houses shows you any open houses for the listing, or allows you to create new ones in here if we're not pulling them in from the MLS automatically. Open house availability lets you set availability for this system. So the idea is if you have an open house coming up for this listing and you want to show to other agents within the company that you're looking for someone to host it, you can put that availability in here. So for example, if I had an open house coming up for this weekend, I could say I have one on the 12th and 13th, or the house is available for an open house during those dates. Does anybody want to host this open house? And I would add the open house availability. It would add it to that section, and then on the standard welcome page there is an open house availability widget somewhere. Now in this case I don't see it because I'm hosting the open house, so it's not showing me the open house that I'm hosting. But other agents will be able to see that there are open houses here available to host, and they would be able to go in and basically request that they can host your open house, and at that point the system will notify you and you have the ability to go in and approve or deny that. So that is what that system is built for, and how you go in and manipulate it, or use it rather, because you're not really manipulating that one. So we'll go back over to our listing page, and there's open house availability. The next thing you can do is you can add notes to this listing. It'll keep these notes in here, and then you can also display those in the seller reports if you want. So you would just type in a note here and hit add new note, and that will save it. If you don't add it on the seller report, it's just an easy way that you can put notes on a listing that you can come into the DeltaNet and see. And then lastly, this is where you would modify the listing photos. So we will pull in the photos from the MLS, but if you want to change out the photos, if you want to add more photos in here, if you want to put in higher quality photos, That is what this interface is for. So we have the ability that you can download all of the photos all together if you want. You can replace the individual photos by just clicking Choose File here, picking the file on your computer, and then hitting Upload File. Or you can upload the files in bulk here, and you could actually either drag them in, or you can hit Add Files and then select the files on your computer, and then put those in. So that is how you would go in and modify photos on those. The main thing about modifying photos is that once you have modified photos through the DeltaNet, we'll stop pulling them in from the MLS at that point. And the reason we do that is so that we don't overwrite any of your changes. Now that includes even if you're just reordering photos. So even if you're not actually deleting or replacing or adding in new photos, but let's say you have 3 photos here, you can actually grab this and you can drag these photo boxes around in order to change the order they'll show up on the website. If you reorder them, that will also stop us from pulling from the MLS because we pull in that order too. So that way we don't overwrite your reordering. So it's just something to keep in mind. And if you do make changes to photos on a listing and you want us to start pulling from the MLS again, you can contact us and we can manually set those back so they'll pull in again. So there you go. That is the listing management stuff in a nutshell. I say stuff because it's not really its own system. But that is how you go in and manage listings and do kind of your main listing upkeep and maintenance through the DeltaNet. So, as always, thanks a lot for joining me. If you have any questions, concerns, comments, feel free to give us a call or send an email into support@deltagroup.com, and we will be happy to help you. So thanks a lot for joining me, and I will see you again next week.